Now today we will be talking about while loops. While loop starts with the following. Let's say that a is equal to 10, I is equal to 5, while I is less than or equal to a, then print a. Now decrement a by 1. This can also be written as a minus equal 1. So now it's going to print 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and 5. Because we met 5, the loop stopped. And this is how while loop works basically. It's very simple now that you fully understood what the for loop is. So like a for loop, the while loop starts out with the keyword while. Following that, we have a conditional like we would use to write an if statement. And as you can see in this example, we have a equals 10, I equals 5, while I is less than or equal to a, print a. As long as I is less than or equal to a, then print a. If we just said it's less than a, it's going to go until 6, and it will stop at 6. Now, when we decrement health by 1, so each iteration would, when we decrement a by 1, so when we decrement a by 1, so each iteration uses a closer to 5. If we didn't decrement a at any point in time, this would become an infinite loop, which is bad. Now, while versus for loops. I've explained a few times now why we would use each loop. However, it's always good to reiterate concepts. For loops are generally used when you need to count or iterate over a collection of elements. While loops are generally used when doing condition-based looping. When using a while loop, often you'll use a Boolean variables. Each loop has their use cases. In most cases, it's personal preference, but the general rule of thumb is continue with for loops conditions with while loops. Counting is for counting, not continuing. Counting with for loops and conditions with while loops. So the pass, break, and continue statement all work the same way for while loops as well. Now, infinite loops. In a previous situation, we talked about an infinite loop that it's bad. An infinite loop will continue to run until the program breaks. The computer is shut down or until time stops. Knowing this, stay away from creating infinite loops. Here's an example of an infinite loop. Now this is the value of sum is equal to 10, and then it just keeps printing out 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 without stopping. So for instance, you can say game over equal to false, while not game over, print game over. This is going to keep on printing game over and over again because we started with false. Now, what about nested loops? The concept of a loop within a loop is what we call a nested loop. The concepts of a loop still apply. When using nested loops, the inner loop must always finish running before the outer loop can continue. Let's see an example of this. Now, as we have seen in our previous video, we have two lists that contains colors and fruits. Now, for X in colors, for Y in fruits, print X and Y. This is going to print yellow mango, yellow banana, yellow apple, and then black mango, black banana, black apple, green mango, green banana, green apple, purple mango, purple banana, purple apple. And this is how the nested loops work. In total, we can see that inner loop runs 6 times and the outer loop runs twice. The value of I only increments when the outer loops. The value of x only increments when the outer loop runs, which doesn't occur until the inner loop finishes. The inner loop must count from 0 to 3 each time to run the next iteration on the outer loop. So write a while loop that continues to ask for user input and runs until they type quit. Write a for loop within a while loop that will count from 0 to 5, but when it reaches 3, it sets a game over variable to true and breaks out of the loop. The while loop should continue to loop until game over is true. The output should only be 0, 1, 2. Today was a bit of a shorter day, as the concept of loops is the same whether it's a while or for. Remember that while loop is used for conditional looping, while we use a for loop for counting, iterating. Now let's talk about working with lists instead of just loops. So now that I have 2 exercises for you, one is to write a while loop that continues to ask for user input and runs until they type quit. Let's try to do this problem, but before I do it, pause the video and try doing it yourself. So write a while loop that keeps looping until the user types quit. So how would you go about this? We would do while input type a command or quit, and then colon space is not equal to quit, then pass. And pass will just return nothing, and that's good. That will just stop working. So let's try this. Type in hello, type in hello again, type in quit, quit. Oh, there's a bug. Should be like so. Hello, quit. There you have it, folks. It quits. Now the second exercise that I want you to do is to create a double loop. Now write a for loop within a while loop that will continue to count from 0 to 5, but when it reaches 3, it sets a game over value to true and breaks out of the loop. The while loop should continue to loop until game is over is true. The output should only be 0, 1, and 2. So pause the video and try to do this problem. Now, let me write it down for you on the screen so you can see what you're going to do. Let's say we first want to write a for loop within a while loop. So that's step 1. Okay. Now step 2. For loop with range 0 to 5. So that's 0 to 5. Number 3, when it reaches 3, it sets the game over variable to true. Number 4, the output should be 0, 1, and 2. Now pause the video and try to solve this problem. Now let's go ahead and try to solve this problem. First, we have to create a game over variable that is set to false in order to loop on it until it's triggered and turned into true, so it stops. And this is how for loops work, basically. So let's type in game over equal to false, and then while not game over, then we create a for loop inside that while loop for num in range 5 if num is less than 3, then print num, and now game over equal true. So let's see what happens when we type this out. As you can see, it printed out 0, 1, and 2. So unlike the for loops, while loops keep executing the statements within the loop. As long as the condition is true. Remember your if statement. It's similar to that, but there's an added element of iteration in here. The syntax is very simple. We initialize, and then we give it a while condition, and then lines of code, and then increment. The syntax is a bit confusing, isn't it? So let's type this out and see what's going on. Let's go to laptop.com/languages/python3. Let's say we have to initialize, and then we have the while condition, then colon, then some lines of code, and then we increment, which means something plus or equal 1. Now, in order to fix this, let's go ahead and type in 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. So the syntax might be a bit confusing. Let me explain with an example. It's similar to a for loop, really, but just a bit longer. In a for loop, we give a range. Let's say our range starts from 1. So in our while loop, we need to initialize our temporary variable with the start of the range, like this. X is equal to 1. So this is how you initialize your while condition. Then we need the condition. Let's say we want the range to end at 11, which means it needs to iterate from 1 to 10, so we can give our condition like this. While x is less than 11, alternatively, you could make your condition y is less than x is less than or equal to 10, while x is less than or equal to 10. You have the freedom to do that with your while loops. Finally, you need your lines of code. It could be anything, really, and it could be any number of lines of statements. But just like with your for loops, the inner lines of code need to come after the indentation. This is what we have so far. X is equal to 1, while x is less than 11, print x. So let's type this out again. X is equal to 1, while x is less than 11, print x. But if we end the loop here, we'd create a never-ending loop. X would always be 1, and it will always be less than 11. So the condition would always be true, and the loop will never stop executing. That's dangerous. So we need the loop to stop at a point, right? That's why we increment our x. Increment x by any number if you want at one point the loop to end. So we say x plus equal to 1. Now let's run the code and see what happens. As you can see, it printed out 1 to 10. Perfect. Now I want to touch upon break and continue again. Break and continue. It isn't hard to guess what these do, is it? The break statement breaks the loop, regardless of your range or condition being true. So for x in range 1 and 11, if x is equal to 5, then break and print x. Now also print loop stopped, and then this mark right here. So let's just clear this out. Now for x in range 1 to 11, if x is equal to 5, break, print x. So x is going to stop until it reaches 5. Break will stop the function, the loop completely. And then it will type print loop stopped. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, loop stopped. Loop broke. Look at that. I didn't even get a 5 because my break statement was above my print statement. This is how break works. But the continue statement, on the other hand, just skips that particular iteration and still executes the rest. Why don't we use the while loop to test things this time? Let's use the same example, but this time I want to continue when x is 5. So let's say continue x plus equal 1, then continue, then print x, and then x plus equal 1, print 5 was skipped. Now let's see what happens here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 was skipped. You see here, what if we tried to break the code and said x stop here? It did work. So read the preceding lines of code carefully. Did you notice something? I included another increment statement before the continue statement. Why? Remember, I told you that you need to be careful of infinite loops and while loops. Now, let's try this again with the while loop. So x is equal to 1, while x is less than 11, if x is equal to 5, then increment x by 1, continue, print x, and then increment x by 1. And last but not least, print 5 was skipped. So let's try this. Let's cancel this out and try it again. As you can see, 5 was skipped with the while loop. Now, with the for loop and the range function, you can just do whatever you want. But with the while loop, you have to be very careful. So if you read the code, x is equal to 1, and we increment it by 1, and it skips, then it continues. Now what if we try this? What if we take out this incrementation method? Loop will never stop, because x will always be equal to 1, and it will not increment. So we have to include this statement in order for it to work. Now, did you notice something? I did actually include an increment statement right before the continue statement. Why? Remember how I told you that we need to be careful of infinite loops and while loops. Now, if I just continued the loop, then x would always be stuck at 5, because at every iteration, my program would check if x was 5, and it will always be true, because increment did not happen. So while loops can be tricky like that, so be careful. Now thank you for watching my video. Please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you so much again. Now take care and goodbye.